Right, so I think we'll start soon. Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Nice to see you all today. And thank you for joining the AphA London branch meeting, the third and last event for 23-24. And please note that this meeting is recorded and will be shared on the AphA website at a later date. So I'm going to share the slides. Please shout if you can't see it. Okay. Right. My name is Rumiko Yonezawa, Associate Director of BI and Analytics at Epsom & St Helier, and I'm also the AphA London branch lead. So I am joined by the deputy branch leads covering the 5 areas in London, as you can see here on the slide. Hopefully you are now familiar with the leads covering your area. Today we have an announcement on the changes out of South East London. Steve, who has been representing South East London, will be focusing on his role as the chair of London Skills Development Network, and we'll be handing over to Roger Harris from Guy's and St Thomas's. So I'd like to introduce you to Roger. Roger, say hi to everyone.
Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to working with you all. This is actually my first meeting as well, so it's going to be a good learning curve for me to jump into two roles at once. And really appreciate Steve's time earlier today with him updating me. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you all.
Welcome, and exciting to have you on board. Steve, you have later on to the section where you can update on the SDN, if that's okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. Yep. Okay. So we have great speaker lineup today as always, but before we start, I'm handing over to Catherine, who will be taking you through the housekeeping rules.
Thank you, Rumiko. First of all, again, let's say welcome to everybody. So AphA is an organisation for the members, run by the members. So it's all our time here today is voluntary, but this is a really good platform for us all to get to share best practice and sort of get to know each other. Really inclusive, so everyone's contribution is really welcome and encouraged. So if you want to put a question in the chat, or put your hand or raise your hand on the chat on the Teams function. Again, we encourage sharing on social media. AphA is on Twitter and on LinkedIn, so it'd be really great to just have some feedback on today's session. The speakers are sometimes representing themselves or their organisations, so just to be aware of that. And there'll be a time for at the end of each talk for a bit of Q&A, and everyone's contribution is most welcome. Again, either through raising your hand or putting a question in the chat. Just general housekeeping for Teams meetings. So if you're not, encourage everyone to have their camera on if you'd like. If really good to get to know everyone. If you're not speaking, if you could stay on mute, and as Rumiko said earlier, if you could just introduce yourselves in the chat area.
Okay. Thanks, Catherine. Right, so this is the agenda for today. We've done the housekeeping, and we will go through the updates since our last session in September. Since September, the number of membership has increased. As you can see, London leads the membership numbers. More trusts are signing up to AphA on the corporate membership, which allows 10% discount on annual fees. So if your organization do not have a corporate membership, do speak to your managers or the leads. We are happy to come in, speak to anyone who will be interested, please do contact your leads in your area. So this year, 23-24, has been a very busy year for AphA, and Q3 was not an exception. In October, we had the launch conference of the National Competency Framework. We'll go into details later. We have Sarah Blundell joining us. And then late in October, there was Digital Health AI and Plus Data Conference, which was the first one of the kind, I think. And then early December, HSJ Health and Care Intelligence Conference was held. AphA is now in partnership with HSJ. And next, I would like to introduce Ruth. She is the Deputy CIO of Imperial, but also the Executive Director of Regions for AphA. Ruth supports us from a national perspective and will let us know what's going on in AphA at the national level. Thank you, Ruth. Over to you.
Thanks, Rumiko. I'll be quick because I'm sure you want to get into the meat of the meeting. It looks like a really, really great agenda with some interesting stuff I'm looking forward to hearing about. So I'm going to rattle through some key points on what's going on in AphA. All feedback questions are welcome. So, interrupt me if you want to know more about a particular topic. So the first thing to highlight is professional registration. One of the things that AphA promotes heavily, and one of the things we're aiming to do, is ensure that the vast majority of us become professionally registered, just like all the other members of the multidisciplinary teams in which we work. And there's a couple of workshops that have been held recently to take people through that professional registration process. And we're currently in a professional registration window, which means you can get your application in during January. And then it will go through the assessment process. I think the next window is April, and I'm sure Andrew Barraclough, who's on the call, will correct me if I've got that timescale wrong. So if you do want to become professionally registered, which I would highly recommend, get your application in soon. And that process is becoming more and more streamlined. FedIP, which is AphA's parent body, and has lots of other professional organisations feeding into it, is launching a professional registration platform imminently, I think, if it hasn't already launched. So you can do the whole process on there now. And we've had some really positive feedback from people who have used that platform, that it really does help streamline the process. Next, I wanted to mention that AphA has started accrediting training providers as well. It's a recent thing. 2 have gone through the process so far. So we've endorsed one of HDR UK's data engineering online training courses. They actually have some really good stuff available for free to all access to everybody who's got an internet connection. So we've endorsed one of their training programs, and also we've accredited the Health Service Modelling Associates program, which is run out of the Southwest but is available to everyone nationally. And I've had people in my team go through that program and have really fed back positively about it. It's quite intense, I think, but well worth it. Mentoring continues. So if, as part of your New Year's professional resolutions, if you made any, you thought, right, 2024 is the year where I want to take my career development much more seriously than I have in the past, and I really want to get some guidance and input from someone who's trodden this path before me, then I would highly recommend you apply for AphA's mentoring program. It is still the only structured mentoring program in the UK that we are aware of for data and analytics professionals. So, people are sometimes find mentors locally through informal networks, but as far as we're aware, AphA is the only body that offers a kind of large-scale mentoring program for people doing the jobs that we do. And other announcements, Rumiko mentioned that we did the AphA conference in partnership with the launch of the National Competency Framework. We're looking at the partnership, partnering worked well, and we're looking at potential partners for our 2024 conference. So just more on that coming soon. Two more things to say. The Chief Analytics Officer Network has now been officially launched. It had one launch meeting where I think it was over 50 attendees and lots of enthusiasm in the meeting for the network. I think CIOs have been traditionally just better at organising themselves. They've been around longer. And now we are organising ourselves as leaders of this profession that we work in. So very few people on that call had the title Chief Data and/or Analytics Officer. But what we're looking for, and we haven't identified everyone yet, is the most senior person leading on data and analytics in your healthcare organisation. So you absolutely do. It's an inclusive group, not an exclusive group. And there may be some people on this call who fit that description, who we haven't identified yet through our networks, because we are aiming to create that register and keep that register up to date so that we know who each other are. And I think we'll become quite a powerful lobbying group, influencing group to take the profession in the direction that we think it should go. So if we didn't manage to get in touch with you for that meeting, please do contact me, and I'll make sure you get on that list. So that's ruth.holland@nhs.net. If anyone does want to get in touch, please do get involved. And finally, we're always looking for new articles for our AphA magazine and newsletters. That can be a focused piece on a technical thing that you want to write about. If there's any budding journalists out there, it could be a spotlight on you and your career. We want to know who our members are, and there are no defined career paths at the moment. We've probably all found our way into this profession in various different ways, and actually it is quite interesting to other people how you've come to do the jobs that you are doing. So and we've got support. You wouldn't have to necessarily write it. You'd probably give up half an hour of your time with someone that can help write articles. So if you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have the spotlight on some of the London members. Don't shy away. Do some PR and self-promotion. But thank you for your support for AphA. It's really going from strength to strength, and that's only because of, as Rumiko said at the beginning and Catherine said at the beginning, that people are volunteering their time to make us into a really strong profession. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. It's really full on this year, isn't it? It's really exciting times. And I know that data and analytics professionals tend to be shy kind of people, but do come out and get yourself onto the AphA membership and events, speakers, and the newsletter, magazine articles. Please do. Okay, moving on. Next would be Steve, who would be updating us on the Skills Development Network. I'm shown that informatics, but it's digital now, isn't it? So,
you're stealing my thunder, you
Sorry.
see.
Sorry.
So that was a good intro. So thank you for that. So just a couple of updates that I wanted to give. So the first one was, and you don't get a prize for that, but we have subtly changed the name from Informatics Skills Development Network to Digital. For a couple of reasons. I mean, one is clearly around extending the footprint out to cover a broader range of staff that would, sort of recognise themselves in the digital space. So encouraging CCIOs, CNIOs, etc., to become part of the skills development network, whereas historically it has been generally more focused around the sort of informatics BI staff. Now there is a challenge around some of the resources required to do that we're working through, but it also aligns us to the description of the other skill development networks around the country. So we're all digital skills development networks. There was a period of time where it was London held out a little bit for several reasons, but we are now all aligned. So yes, that is our new name going forwards. And the second thing, obviously, I really wanted to promote was that we have our annual conference on the 6th of February, so a couple of weeks' time. We've got a really good, I think, program for the day, and obviously we strongly encourage people to come along. It is a face-to-face event as well, and I think we've taken that decision deliberately to try and build again that networking that I think personal interaction can give you in a way sometimes that Teams doesn't. So, and it's the first time we've redone that again for several years. So if anyone wants details, it is on the website, or you can approach myself and I'm happy to share those details with anyone. But yes, it would be great to see as many members from AphA at the Skills Development Network, and I know you also are presenting there as well. So, and thank you for that. So yes, and I guess the final thing is, like yourselves, like AphA, we are also looking to ensure that we have as much representation across London as possible. So we are aware that there are gaps in certain patches of London where we don't feel that we've got quite the right interactions. So again, I'd strongly encourage people, if you're not interacting with the Skills Development Network, to contact myself or any one of us there, and hopefully you've all seen the prospectus that is circulated around about September time. It works on a academic year rather than a sort of financial year, and make maximum use of the vast number of courses that are available across a plethora of different, both technical and I guess people call them soft skills, but I'm not entirely sure they're really soft, but equally valuable skills. So yeah, I will end there.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, any questions for Steve and Ruth? Ruth.
I've got a question for Steve. I'm just interested, sorry, Steve, I know choosing a name is probably, you've probably been through a right process of consultation. I just wondered why digital was chosen rather than digital data and technology, because we tend to think about DDAT now, and digital personally doesn't speak to me. I've just had the same conversation with digital health CIO network, who've just issued something called the Birmingham Declaration about how they want to develop skills and leadership in digital. And there's a couple of references to data in their declaration, but I just challenged them to say, actually, it doesn't speak to me. You're talking about digital leadership, and that doesn't always feel inclusive. And it was too late for them to change it, although I think they did want to after my feedback. So I'm just interested in that choice of title.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and you're quite right. There was a very lengthy debate over quite a long time of trying to find a name that I think, as you said, was inclusive, was meaningful, did properly represent embrace. I guess the long and short of it, in a lot of ways, was that we came off the coattails of other kind of networks around the country having already adopted digital, and because there was a principle of having that consistency of the name being the same across, like you said, it kind of became almost a decision we didn't have to make, although we did make make it. And as I said, we had quite a debate around it, and we did hold out for a fair amount of time actually before we accepted almost what became inevitable. So it doesn't really answer your question, and I wonder whether we will revisit that. But it was more, I suppose, to say, or the various branches around the country having to adopt the same moniker. So I think that's generally actually how it's ended up being what it is. But yes, as you say, I do wonder whether we might revisit that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually with Ruth, and I did kind of raise concerns when I was first told about this, but I think it was too late. It was already decided. So it would be good if, you know, we get some feedback from others. Roger.
Hi, Steve. It's probably quite an ignorant question that I haven't paid enough attention, but really would like to try and work out how Skills Network and the training and accreditation you provide joins up with, if it does at all, with a national competency framework, or is that if that's too much of a question?
No, it's not. I will attempt to answer it. So the accreditation process that the Skills Development Network has had in place for some time is more around the department. It's not focused on the individual. It's about the function within the organisation and the department. So I guess, you know, in terms of, you know, its distinguishing kind of features, that is the one I would call out. So obviously the national is very centered around you as the individual and you as the analyst. So they can go hand in hand because, you know, we are looking at, you know, any given organisation. Hopefully there are some on the call who've been through that process. I think we have 5 or 6, maybe even more now, that have got the at least level 1 accreditation. But yes, they can co-join. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm interest of time, I'm moving on. So we have, this is the agenda. We're pushing a little bit with the time, but next, the first presentation will be National Competency Framework by Sarah Blundell, and I welcome Sarah here. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you for inviting me.
Yep, and over to you.
Fab. So hello everybody, I'm Sarah Blundell. I'm lead for data and analytics development in NHS England, and thank you for the previous question about competency framework. That was very much appreciated. Now obviously I'm imagining there's a bit of a mixed bag of people in the room, of people like Ruth, who obviously is now an expert on all things to do with competency framework, and actually I could have just got her to do the presentation today, it would have been fine. And maybe other people that have maybe heard of it but don't necessarily know a lot of detail. So what I'm going to try and do today is pitch both at people who know absolutely nothing, but also then give an update for people that are aware of what's been going on and like to know what the latest developments are. So I'm going to try and juggle it. So for people that are experts, apologies, the first few minutes you might find a little bit repetitive of things you already know, but for we will get on to the detail, and I will share the detailed slides that I have that I won't get into today because recognizing time constraints, but that will allow everybody else to have a look at that content in more detail later on. So as I mentioned, I work in NHS England, and I work in the professionalising of data and analytics workforce, which aligns very nicely with what AphA is also trying to do. So we're trying to make it so that health and care is recognised as one of the best places to work as a data professional. And we're doing that. We can only do that by working collaboratively in an open and transparent way to standardise who we are, what we do, and how we develop. As mentioned, digital data and technology has been mentioned already again today. We are the data family of that. So at the moment, that means we look after data analysts, data scientists, and data engineers. In the future, as DDET expands, the data family, we are expanding as well. So this coming year, the competency framework will look to expand to include data governance as well as data I can never say that. Data ethics. Let's just say that. But that's who we are, and that's how we map up. So from a program perspective, we look after data, and there are other of our colleagues who are looking after cybersecurity and information governance and all the other lovely things that sit under DDAT. So competency framework sits very nicely and neatly into this area of work, because the idea is you need a really solid foundation from which to start. So our competency framework allows us to have consistent standards and languages that would be used across multiple organisations. So we're all talking apples and apples, not apples and oranges, so that we're able to identify pockets of brilliance of where we've got really high levels of skills in one particular areas, so we can actually start identifying that and giving people more platforms on that, so that people that are managing analytics and data engineering workforces can start doing some succession planning. If you know what the baseline of skills are for your existing staff and you know where you want to go, it becomes a lot easier to plot how you get from A to B, etc. Well, obviously, it's not going to do partnership working for you, but by having that consistent languages and standards, by being able to identify where good practice and best practice and skills exist, by being able to think about what you want to do for the future, it should enable much easier partnership working between organisations, because you can identify who has the skills where in what pockets, and also look at how you then can more easily, because you're comparing apples with apples, share staff between organisations. And ultimately, one of the things obviously we are looking at doing and working at doing is how do you map training offers to the standards within the competency frameworks. It makes it much easier for people to go, I'm targeting this skill. Oh, there's a list of CPD that meets it, that's been accredited, maybe even by AphA. And therefore we can then, it makes it much easier for people to do CPD, not find CPD, but it also allows us to identify where the gaps are, so that when all those lovely training providers come to us and tell us what you need, they can go off and actually maybe plug some of the gaps instead of replicating training that's already out there and probably being provided by 10 other people. So I'm not going to go into this in detail, but just to say, because we're from a data background, we've gone through a very robust methodology of how we construct the competency framework over the last couple of years. We've had over 500 data professionals involved from across the country, and it has gone through a whole discovery, iterative creation phase, a testing phase in organisations, and then early adoptions, Imperial being one of them. We're now at a stage, I've got a little bit of animation for you. I'm getting better at that. But as I say, we've tried to get as much regional voices in to sort of give that uniqueness that comes from different flavours and different organisations around the country. Also, Wales has been involved. I keep saying this, I will get a map with Wales on it at some point, etc. People keep offering, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I can find one. I just haven't got around to it yet. But these are the people that have been involved in this development. But obviously, it's not stopping with the fact that we've launched it. It's created on a modular framework. So at the moment, as I said, things are based around data analysis, data science, data engineering. In the coming year, we'll look at developing core competencies around data governance management and data ethics. But the idea is modular. Core competencies relate to the 90% of skills that you'd expect people in those types of roles to be able to do, up to 5 practitioner levels, coming in from level 1, which is your associate practitioner, your entry level, your apprentices, etc., all the way up to your leading strategy people. I'm going to pick on Ruth again, up there, setting the scene of what you would do across the system, etc. Specialisms relate to the thing that might be the uniqueness, the unique flavouring. So you'll have probably only one mapping expert in your team, or one person that does your evaluation leads, etc. So they're their specialist skills, things that you wouldn't expect everyone to be able to do. But then looking at things that then would exist across the range of DDAT, not just in data, key behaviours around equality, diversity and inclusion that we're all expected to be able to do. For example, things around leadership and management, things around working in project skills. These are the types of, this is how the competency framework has been constructed, with the idea that it's flexible, that it can evolve with the times. We can add new specialisms in, we can expand the core competencies, etc. But with the idea is these other elements would go across DDAT roles, and with the idea that you then can pick between, because no one fits neatly in a box. You'll have lots of people in hybrid roles doing a bit of data science, a bit of data analysis, a bit of data engineering, and so we want flexibility of people to be able to pick between them, and ultimately to be able to pick between the competencies across the whole of DDAT. so that you might have someone that's your data engineer, but is also your data governance lead, who might also be doing some of your cybersecurity, etc. As I said, it builds from the basics, this idea of you define the domain, that's the thing that's unique to your organization, the data sets you use, the systems that you use, and the knowledge that is required for that role. But then you would add in consistent things around the core competencies that it would allow consistencies between different domains to allow people to more readily be able to identify if they are wanting to make a horizontal move either between organizations, etc., or even within organizations, but into different data and analytics style roles, that actually what they need to focus on developing is the domain knowledge and a particular specialism, because what they've got in common is that core practitioner, core competency level at the same level, which means that actually with a little bit of help, they can turn their hand to any of those types of roles. The core competencies said, these the high level. Underneath all of these is multiple statements that people would say, yes, I can do, or no, I'm targeting, or maybe even that's something for a future career direction. And that allows people to sort of self-assess where they are against all of these. Same thing for the ancillary framework, and the same thing for the specialisms. Specialisms are defined only to beginner, intermediate, and expert. And we expect this is the area that's going to massively expand over time, very, very much more quickly than changes would be made to the statements under the core competencies. Because more and more people use it, there'll be more things unique things that are coming out of the woodwork that they said, that you haven't thought about this, and we're like, I'm sure we didn't, because we're never going to call everything in the first round of iteration of this. Obviously, competency framework focus is very much at the moment on two things, one of which is the use for supporting development, i.e. your personal development, being able to go in and baseline where your skills are and identify things that, in order to sort of either complete and gaps in your experience, you might then want to be targeting, so you can take those into your PDP conversations and have far more informed conversations. But also from a manager perspective, if you've got the rest of your team doing this, you then are able to compare across staff of where are my skills, where am I interested in going to, do I need to develop different roles differently, but also have I got many people in the team who are wanting to target the same sort of skills for development? So does that mean that I need to look at some sort of team-based training, or are there things that can't be trained but have to be done from a perspective of gaining experience, and therefore who in my team do I want to start pitching projects and new pieces of work to, in order to sort of give them the opportunity to develop the skills that they need, to sort of give them that thing that they can provide the evidence for. Important from your perspective, evidence to be able to say how I've achieved that competency. But also from a perspective of standardizing and in recruitment, having a more skills-based advert increases the attraction for people from a non-NHS background in even reading all the way through to the job advert, clicking through onto your job description. Being able to work with the competency framework to twist, and I'm not saying revolutionize your job description, but twist your job description to give it more of a skills-based flavoring that gives specifics. So instead of saying you have good interpersonal communication skills, you say what that means. You say a few things about what that means. So it's much easier for people, either neurodivergent or, again, people who aren't used to working in the health service and the use of the language that we use. It's more accessible. But also then being able to use it to set the range of interview questions. So if you're going, right, we're going to be, if nothing else, we may not tell them all the exact questions, but we could probably tell them in advance the skill areas we're going to be interested in assessing as part of this interview, so they come prepared with better examples. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, because that's some of the whistle-stop tour of the introduction to the framework. I've got a couple of minutes left. Is that right? Can I just check, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So where we are now, obviously, we've had our early adopters, some of which who are still adopting. As I say, it's an ongoing journey, etc., as they explore different things, and it comes up with different things. So where we are now, 22 new organizations have pledged to adopt the competency framework and have kicked off. Hey, as of the beginning of January. We now have established a fortnightly adopters network call, which is basically brings people along so we can provide showcasing of new items and support, as well as opportunities for people to be able to ask for questions and support. We are imminently kicking off a new podcast series. Yes, It's going to be very cool. It's a spin-off from AnalytX's FICA series. We're going to call it FICA Bites, and these are 10 minutes of like interviews from a range of people. We're looking like CEO down on why the NCF is important, not just and all the way down to apprentices. So we're looking at different questions for all of them in order then to be able to turn that stuff into far more targeted case study pieces to help support people in their conversations with my CIO, my director of finance, my HR lead, etc., to make it a bit easier for them to hear from people like them. And obviously we're out and about, so we will be we'll be at the London Digital Skills Development Network event in February. Ruth and I are both on the same bill, which we actually have to talk about since we're joint presenting on something, but we'll be there. We've also got a stand for AnalytX, so we'll be around at that. So there's loads of those sorts of outreachy style things that we're still doing. We're looking at trying to get some e-learning content up. There's just so much happening, but most importantly, we are the National Competency Framework. Competencies are going to form the spine of the curriculum for the National Data and Analytics Academy. How do I know this? Because I am the poor person who has to do the work on the National Data and Analytics Academy. We've gone on to scoping at the moment, and we've put requests in for spending review money to get this work kicked off, etc. With double act, I don't know. You can choose, Ruth, which one you wants to be, Ant or Deck. As long as we don't have to sing, it will be fine. But that's the idea. So the idea is we are very much at the moment working with apprenticeship providers to map apprenticeship standards to the competency framework. We are also working with a few of the strategic partners from AnalytX. So that's very much the stage one bit, to understand how of what existing training offers that are already out there map to the framework. So we were already going to do that, but now that's forming the basis. I hope that answers your question, Roger, of what's happening from that. And we obviously are going to be working with skills development networks as well, because they are providing a lot of the specialized elements of training locally. So we want to say, right, no, they're covering that, or they're covering that, or the NHSR community is covering some stuff on the technical, things like that. But there are some new things that are going to be commissioned as part of this work, one of which is a school and university pipeline, which is so exciting. So this is outreach from year 7 onwards, that will have a combination of online accredited challenges all the way down to data days that will be in local areas. And we're going to be targeting hard to recruit areas in the first instance, as well as online recruitment days. Yes, we're going to be buddying up with the GMTS scheme to expand the recruitment for out of the Russell Group universities for the graduate schemes, but also then look at how we would set up school leaver apprenticeship pipeline stuff. So people who are interested in that, please let me know. Secondly, we're interested in setting up, we're going to be doing the scoping work with the NHS Digital Academy, James Freed et al., on a curriculum for a health and care data boot camp that would allow industry transfers to come in and do like a 12-week boot camp to get them up to speed with the data of the NHS and the data of the healthcare system and the social care system, so the burden doesn't fall on the teams, etc. As well as looking at then how we would develop a data leadership specific plugin for the Leadership Academy programs to teach data leadership skills. So it's very exciting at the moment, all of this stuff. Obviously, it's all funding dependent, as everything in this life is, but James Freed and the Digital Academy have promised to pay for all of the scoping work that's due to kick off like this April-May time. So there will be stuff coming out on consultation that people can get involved in then. If you've got like a burning, I know what needs to be on these curriculums, then get involved. All right. I think I'm done.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
All
Oh
right.
my God, that is so, it keeps coming, doesn't it? Wow. Any questions for Sarah? Anyone? Roger.
He's got a follow-up.
You'll never stop me targeting when you get me started, I'm afraid. Stop laughing, Steve. Just wondered, because the opportunity there on the apprenticeships, we've got an in-house training program for analysts at GSTT, and one of the things I have assigned a member of my team, or actually somebody else's team who I've happened to have borrowed, is to put some more professionalisation around what we provide those people. So if there were any opportunities to link that person up with any national frameworks, then that would be really appreciated if you would let me know how to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so we're still very, very early stage stuff, but we'd want to, because what we want to trying to avoid doing is that we have this thing of, oh, we're wanting to bring people in on apprenticeship schemes and we're having to go scrabble out and find these people. The idea is we're wanting to have created a cohort of people all the way through from 7 up to undergraduate that have actually got some form of, they've done these online challenges around data, they've got this accreditation, and so then we've got like a little pipeline of people that we can go, we're putting this stuff up for recruitment, do you want to apply for it and do that?
That would be really good. We really struggled with that. We previously worked with the Southeast London. Oh my goodness, the name has gone out of my head at the moment. Who supported us with graduate recruitment. We decided to try and go it on our own in the last round, and we had 1,200 applicants, which nearly killed the team in terms of shortlisting. After HR told us we really had to shortlist them all and then run our own graduate training programs. It's challenging to do it.
Which filter out people that have already then had to have gone through that and not just committed, but actually have done stuff. So it would be quite good. Fantastic. Thank you. Brilliant. Look forward to that. Anyone else?
Brilliant. Thanks.
No worries.
And thank you. In the interest of time, I'm moving on. Thank you so much, Sarah.
No worries.
That was really powerful. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation is from Arjun from East London Foundation Trust. Arjun, are you okay to share the screen?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Rumiko. And hi, hello everyone. So I'm Arjun, and I'm working at the East London Foundation Trust as a business intelligence and a UX lead. So I'm here to present on a project we had done recently, which involves using natural language to analyze the customer feedbacks that were given to us. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see it.
Yes. Okay. We can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, so this project here, we have used natural language processing to analyze service user feedback. So to begin with, let's just see what natural language processing here is. I'm sure most of you must have come across this term, but again, this is a branch of computer science, which gives the ability to understand human words and text for the computer, and it's a branch of computer and AI, and simply put, it's teaching computers how humans speak and think, and these NLP, or the natural language processing task, can be broken down into different ways, and something like speech recognition, which involves computers understanding what humans speak.
Yeah, I don't know if Toot has though.
Part of
Sorry, can everyone mute yourself if you're not speaking? Thank you. Sorry, Arjun, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, part of speech tagging, which is labeling words in sentences, whether it's nouns or words, etc. Word sense disambiguation, which is labeling words in a sentence according to the context in which they're used. Named entity recognition, that is like taking out people names or location names from a text, and so on. And sentimental analysis, where you put in a score or a sentiment score for a particular text which is entered based on whether it's positive or negative. We'll be looking into some of the features here described based on the project we have done. So moving on, the problem we had was we have given surveys to collect our feedback to various service users in different wards and teams. And this survey is divided into multiple segments. So some are Likert scale responses. So, and the other questions are which allows the users to enter free text answers. So these Likert scale responses can be easily analyzed based on their degree. So for example, if someone strongly agrees to something or strongly disagrees to something, you can easily quantify it as a positive or a negative response. But whereas all these free text, what they give is difficult to, we face a challenge in quantifying these free text comments they have given. And that is where we have analyzed or used the capabilities of natural language processing. So getting to know the data. So the survey, as I said, it's like a mix of service related Likert responses and feedback comments. The anonymity of the respondents is maintained throughout the survey. Some of the sample questions are like, how was your experience of your service? What could we do better and all that? So our data captures every response and the date of their response, the location, or in our case, the directorate or the ward from which for which they've given the response, the survey name, and of course, a particular question and their answer. So that's how our data is. So every row is like in every response by one person. And there are cases where the same question is asked differently in different surveys because we have different services and wards. These questions might be asked differently, but the answer is essentially the same what we are looking for. Example, in some surveys, it might be what could we do to improve. On another question, in another survey, it can be what could we do better. And the data we have considered is from 2020 to 2023 to build this model. Okay, this portion might be a little technical, but I'll just quickly rush through it. It's just in the different stages of our solution. So what we wanted was a solution to analyze all these free texts easily. And the 6 stages are like, first is obviously the data preparation. That it mainly involves, structuring all the data, getting the relevant columns in, filtering what we need for the analysis. As I said earlier, some are like Likert responses. We only need the free text questions in our analysis. So we are filtering that. And then comes our NLP, where we are doing 3 categories mainly. One is sentiment analysis, the other is topic modeling, and finally the named entity recognition. In the coming slides, I'll be going in detail, a little bit detail of how we have achieved this. And finally, whatever output we get, we are putting into a report so our stakeholders can use it. And just to go in the technical flow, we have used Microsoft Fabric, which is something new, which is released from Microsoft side. It's like it's like an umbrella on top of the current different Microsoft Analytics products. So basically how the flow works is like we have our data source, which is the raw data, this raw survey data. We are feeding it into a warehouse where we are housing all the data. And then we move on to the Python, the NLP part, where we are cleaning the data, doing all the pre-processing, using Python codes and notebooks and all that to build the ML model. And then we get the output data after sentiment analysis, topic modeling, and name entity recognition. After all that is done, we feed back the output data into our warehouse. And from that warehouse, we are using that output data to produce the reports. And we are using that reports. So just like I mentioned earlier, data pre-processing involves like cleaning the columns. Like I've used some Python functions to clean out the data, to remove all the unwanted stuff from our analysis, filter the data for years and all that. And based on that, we have categorized certain questions so that our analysis becomes easier. And this is the core part of my analysis where we use sentiment analysis. So basically all these feedbacks are in text format, and we want to analyze how people feel about a particular word or a surface based on this feedback. So this is done using a sentiment analysis where it's a natural language process where a particular sentiment or a particular text is fed into the system, and it gives out a score ranging from +1 to -1. +1 indicating it's very positive, and negative indicating a very negative sentiment. And for this purpose, we have used a particular Python library to work it out. The next part of our analysis was topic modeling. So our feedback comments are maybe it's on different topics. Sometimes it's on appointments. Somebody's like angry on the appointment. Sometimes people are not happy with the facilities at some wards or something. So we wanted to categorize these feedbacks into specific categories so that we can easily navigate through it and see what's wrong where or what is good where and all that. So for that, we use this technique called as topic modeling, where we can read a particular sentence and group it into a particular topic. So for example, if I say the toilet facilities are bad, it can be grouped under hygiene category, something like that. And named entity recognition is very important here because this is a dashboard which can be used by anyone in the trust. So they sometimes these people, when they give the feedback, or they might mention people names or the doctor name or the staff names involved, and we don't want that put out there, so that it's giving out your personal information, correct? So we want to use this named entity recognition to ensure that none of the people names are there in any of the feedbacks. So that is how we have achieved this particular solution, and we've built a Power BI report based on the output from all these feedbacks and doing the natural language processing. So before I go, just a small little interactive session here to see how the sentiment analysis works. Feel free to, so I'll post in a feedback we received. So you can guess in the chat box to say what can be the sentiment score for that. It can range from -1 to 1, 1 being very positive and -1 being very negative, and it can be in decimals as well. So this was one of the feedback we received. So having such a wonderful support, it's difficult to offer. I can only offer that in a facility. So this is some a very good feedback. So we had a sentiment score of 0.74. Another one was the service throughout has been excellent and the team are compassionate, welcoming, and experts in their field. Again, a very positive feedback, so it's 0.87. And this was another feedback we received, that there's nothing you can think of. And this, we got a feedback of like score of like 0.0. So this is how the sentiment scores works. Do you guys want to take a guess at this one, this particular feedback comment here? You can put it in the chat box. The ambulance service waiting time for dropping was not that good. So yeah, this had a negative score of 0.034. And the final one, found that I wasn't listened to, felt unsupported when I left. And yep, it sounds very negative, and this feedback score or the sentiment score we received was 0.68. So these were the outputs from our model. So basically how our model worked was like, for every we got feedback scores for every feedback that was given, and that was aggregated for every service and at a directorate level, so that we could get an average sentiment score or a feedback score for each ward or team, or you can aggregate it at any level to see which are the wards that are doing well in terms of generating positive customer feedback. And this is how our solution looked. This is the screenshot of the Power BI dashboard we built out of the data we had gotten out of the doing the NLP. So the first chart here shows the major topics that we identified. So these are some of the topics that we identified, and the width of the word indicates it's like a word cloud. So bigger the word indicates that there are more feedbacks based on that particular topic. The graph here shows like the split of topics by the sentiment they generated. So orange being negative, neutral being gray, and blue being positive. So you can easily see which are the topics that are generated positive sentiment. So for example, uh, here on equipments, there is like a larger percentage of positive sentiments, and also on staff as well. The trend graph here, line chart here, shows the average sentiment over time. And here there is a plot which shows the how different wards are in terms of average sentiment as a measure of number of responses. And finally, we have a feedback comment. So how a particular person like can use this dashboard is like, let's say they want to like drill down or see what is wrong in hygiene, for example. So if I click on hygiene and if I click on the negative category, I can easily see which are the negative feedbacks I received on hygiene. So they have mentioned that shower facilities are very poor, toilets some are blocked, need more cleaning from cleaners. So these are some of the negative feedback that was received for the topic hygiene. And how this can benefit us, of course, like the person who is, so I've hidden the directorate and ward here, but you can see which ward it is and take appropriate action by that. And if you can see in terms of hygiene, there's a lot, like the scores are very low. And in this chart it shows different services which are doing how they're doing in terms of hygiene as well. So this is one way of using the dashboard. And another use is like we can drill down if you want to look at a particular directorate of service. Let's say in this chart I filter out a particular directorate, and it will just filter me the entire dashboard for that particular directorate and all the services that comes under this comes under the directorate. So you can see here in the bottom left chart that all the, let's say that directorate has 10 services coming under it. How are those 10 services doing in terms of the sentiment score and number of responses? So ideally you need to look at services which are in the top category, which has in the bottom in the top corner category here, where they have a higher number of responses and also a higher score. So that's where the these different services should aim to be, or that should be the target in terms of like service feedback. And again, the other thing I mentioned was like, see, some of the feedbacks which was given had some person name in it. So if you see a comment here, like I have masked out the particular name so that their identity is not revealed, whoever that was involved was. And of course, and also you can see the trend line to see how that particular directorate is doing over time. And as you can see here, they are on an upward trajectory and in terms of generating sentiments. So this is how we can use the solution. And of course, in the long run, you can see which topics are causing negative sentiments, and the appropriate people can take actions on improving that, and improving patient experience. Yeah. Any questions?
So, sorry, everyone. Just to pitch in. This is Arvind, head of data and analytics. Just to simplify it, it's actually a fantastic work that we're doing here. I think mostly the free text is not being analyzed, and there's a wealth of insights within that. This is the very first time we are embarking into the AI and NLP and so on and so forth. So far, the responses from our service seems to be fantastic. Today we are actually presenting the same to our people participation team as well. So we're going to, share it with our patients. Some of our patients will be there as well, and we're really waiting to see their response. It's a great way for us to understand where the hotspots are, and it's a fantastic way for us to actually improve our service. And to see and to create a sustainable improvement pattern. That's the fundamental idea behind the scenes. Thanks for this opportunity, and any questions, please, we're happy to take it up. Thank you, Arjun. That's fantastic.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity as well.
Thank you both. This is really amazing, impressive work. Ruth?
Ditto, really impressive, fantastic piece of work. Well done. We had a presentation in the London branch, it must be a couple of years ago now, from a group that were also using NLP to analyze friends and family feedback, not the scores, but the free text. And it was taking, teams in every trust days to try to analyze the free text. And it was a way of, they had some stats where they were saving loads of people's time. And they were trying to and they'd been funded by NHSE to do it, and they were trying to roll it out to various different trusts. And I think you've done similar, but actually I think the strength of what you've done is, as well as all the analysis, is the Power BI board that you're presenting back into the organization to the very people that are providing the services. So just in terms of an end-to-end solution, well done. And I don't know, I can dig out the details of the people that were doing the work, because they are still working on this, and we're rolling it out to various different trusts in waves. So I don't know whether you want to compare notes or just forge your own path, but there is another group that is doing this, albeit I think they're struggling to embed it just because of capacity in local organizations.
Wow, that'd be great, Ruth. We'll be happy to link up with them and see how we could contribute and learn together.
Thank you. Any other questions? I mean, just our group director of performance was just, I think it was just yesterday, asking us how to kind of analyze the friends and family test, you know, and to incorporate into improvement. And this he's going to be really excited to see this. This brilliant work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next presentation, I wonder, Catherine, because interest of time, just go straight to the next presentation, and if there's time we can go to the quiz later on.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, I think.
Yeah, okay.
We can always roll it over.
Thank you.
We can always roll it over to the next meeting
Right,
as well.
next one, yeah, definitely. Next one is face-to-face, so yeah, that might be quite good. Okay, so our next presentation is from my own Epsom and St Helier Hospital virtual ward, and I will invite my colleagues here. It will be a joint presentation by the BI team and the service leads. Okay, would you like to share your screen? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ramya Dante, Principal Analyst from Integrated Care BI team from Epsom and St Helier. I'm here with my colleagues Joe and Philippa and Amanda this afternoon to talk about virtual wards. Nice to see you all. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Can you all see my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so in Epsom and St Helier, we work with two community care providers, Sutton Health and Care and Surrey Downs Health and Care. Surrey Downs Health and Care manages the virtual wards within the Surrey Downs area, and Sutton Health and Care manages the virtual wards within Southwest London. Before we actually dive into the topic, does anyone know what is a virtual ward? Is it something that you follow in your trust? Would you like to share your thoughts, experiences, please?
I think people can put it on the chat if they can.
Yeah. Okay, let me move on to the next slide. So basically, virtual ward is a place where patients can receive the treatment within the comfort of their own homes without having to get admitted into the NHS bed, especially in the secondary care. So that's how it either prevents the hospital admissions or supports the early discharges out of the hospital. And the main ambition of the virtual ward across different community care providers is to maximize the virtual ward bed capacity within their services and to prevent the virtual ward from becoming a safety netting service, and also to manage their length of stays effectively by having a clear criteria to admit and reside, and also to fully exploit the remote monitoring technology and other wider digital platforms to deliver effective and efficient care. And initially, virtual wards in UK were supported with two patient pathways, acute respiratory infection and frailty. However, this has been rolled out into a wide range of conditions recently. And integrated care systems have been funding this program of virtual wards, and targets were introduced for systems to have the equivalent capacity of 40 to 50 virtual ward beds per 100,000 population by end of December 2023. So the benefits of virtual ward are the easy access for patients to have the treatment done within the comfort of their own home, and patients to feel convenient and comfortable, thereby receiving the medical attention without needing to get admitted into the hospital. And also, it reduces the risks of hospital-associated harms and infections, and personalized care plans where patients can have individualized care plans tailored to their own specific needs. and also having close monitoring by the clinical team and enhanced communication. And which virtual ward can also be enabled by technology, and virtual ward, which is called tech enabled, should have a minimum of these 3 criteria. So the ability for patients to be able to input their health data onto the app or the website themselves, and which the clinical team will be able to access via the dashboards. And also the clinical team are alerted when a patient moves outside of their agreed parameters. And I would like to hand it over to my colleague Joe Sakara to carry on with the rest of the slides. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramya. I'm Joe Sakara, business analyst for Epson and Helia, mainly with the community side of things. This model here that we've got is that for Surrey Downs, and we've got Amanda who would want to take us through this bit, as this is how they operate in Surrey Downs. Amanda?
Thank you. Virtual ward in Surrey Downs has been going about 17 months. We started with a frailty virtual ward, and we have developed and expanded the model over this last year, including our data collecting capabilities. The actual model from referral to discharge is that there are multiple referral sources, and patients are able to step up into virtual ward via direct GP referral, where a GP or a community matron have assessed a patient, and they have got a clear clinical plan for the virtual ward to follow, or via our UCR, which is our rapid response as part of Home First across 4 PCNs. And patients themselves and carers can refer to our rapid response, as can care homes, the ambulance service, and we also pull directly from the ambulance service as well. Then a clinical assessment can be followed up with care, management, further investigation on the virtual ward. Step down patients come from acute care, and A&E, there can be direct referral to virtual ward from both medical assessment and therapy assessment. And this technically is still prevention of admission. And then we look at being able to shorten hospital stays through referrals from acute wards, same day emergency care, and the acute medical unit. And we are continuing to build on those links. When a patient has been referred, it's a verbal referral so that 2 clinicians discuss the assessment and the clinical plan and agree a plan of action for follow-up on virtual ward. As Ramya mentioned, we have a hybrid model of face-to-face and virtual review, and currently at the moment we are kind of low-tech digital monitoring. We have oxygen saturation monitors, and someone who would then call the patient, and the patient would have, or their carers would have, an escalation pathway for low readings. But we are collaborating with a digital technology provider for remote monitoring, and then this will be using readings coming into a dashboard and daily video review. Once we are able to do blood tests, ECGs, we can arrange ultrasounds and x-rays just like you would in a normal ward. The big difference about virtual is just the fact that people are in their own beds, in their own place of care, and that can also be care homes. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Amanda. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so we've got a video here that will take us through how the virtual world actually operates, if we can get this going.
doesn't seem like it's working.
It doesn't look like we're going to have any luck
Yeah.
with this video, so
No,
we will
yeah.
share this in the slides later on, and anyone can play it to see how the virtual world works. Can we skip this, please, to the next slide?
What is a virtual ward?
Sorry.
Virtual.
Do you want me to play it or not? Sorry, it's just started.
No,
Yeah,
let's
go
to
on to the next one. Okay, so this slide here will tell us about how the virtual world operates as well. It's actually a multidisciplinary team that is made up of doctors, pharmacists, advanced clinicians, nurses, therapists, and then paramedics. So all these people come together to help the virtual world function as it should be. The virtual world usually opens between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. So Saturn's patient also benefits from 24-hour monitoring by the Central Remote Monitoring Hub, which is Southwest London, and overnight escalation via the night nursing team. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at virtual wards as it being an example of the integrated care models. The main reason for virtual wards here, as the two visuals show, is actually step up and step downs. Switch step up is discharge from hospitals, and then step down is admission avoidance. So with this slide is actually showing us how Saridown is preventing admission, also reducing the length of stay, and the same as what the one on the right hand side is doing, showing us what Saturn does with respect to hospital admission avoidance and then reduction of length of stay on the acute hospital beds. Next slide, please. This slide here, SPC charts we created using the Easy SPC, and they mainly just showing us the trends of admission and the length of stays on the virtual world for Surrey Downs and Saturn Health and Care as well. For the next few, okay.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, I was just going to add here. In Surrey Downs Health and Care, we did a big transformation work on our clinical system, and this has dovetailed really well with our work together to collect data, but also means that we could be more accurate about our length of stay, and so that's why you can see the big swings and then the kind of moderated results after our transformation work.
Thank you, Amanda. The next few slides are things that Sarah from Saturn, who is the virtual world operational manager, would like to take us through. So I'll hand us over to Sarah.
Or in fact, Pippa.
Pippa.
Sarah is my colleague and we normally come as a pair. So I'm Pippa, I'm the ops manager for the Sutton virtual ward, which operates slightly differently to the Surrey Downs model, but overall it's probably not worth going into the detail of exactly where the differences lie. So one of the questions we often get asked is around how many bed days we're saving, and questions around the length of stay, which is the data that's just been presented. So I was going to talk a little bit about that from a more operational point of view. So the target length of stay for virtual wards is obviously between 7 to 10 days with a maximum of 14. We've been gathering data obviously over the last year. Virtual wards have been set up at different points over the last 3 years. So the data's been kind of slowly coming to a point where we can start using it for comparison. But there is quite a lot of variation nationally, but also with Southwest London, which we get compared with in Sutton, to the length of stay on virtual wards and also the cost of individual virtual ward bed days. What we have found sort of anecdotally is that patients are often very complex and they can require further follow-up after the 14-day point. But because of the pressure on all of the NHS services, it can be really difficult sometimes to discharge patients from a virtual ward into appropriate services in a timely fashion. So that's an area that we've been specifically focused on and looking at to try and reduce our length of stay. In Sutton, we have managed to reduce from about 13 days on average to about 7 days on average over the last 6 months. So it's interesting that that could be presented to look like we're having less of an impact in terms of saving bed days, but at the same time it means that we can have a higher number of referrals come through the virtual ward, and therefore have a bigger impact on that front. The number of bed days saved as well requires a number of assumptions which haven't really been agreed across the board, around whether patients would be admitted to hospital, how long they would stay, and the impact of potentially picking up infections in hospital, deconditioning in the frail patients that we see. And we're also not really measuring some of the other benefits to patients around potentially avoiding further admissions or failed discharges, having reduced care needs because they've stayed in their own home. And what we're looking to try to develop now, I think, is a bit more of a proactive approach to virtual wards and build that into people's individual care plans, so that patients can identify that they would like to be treated by a virtual ward if their condition gets to a point where they would potentially have needed admitting to hospital, and try and stop people even presenting at ED in the first place. If we could move on to the next slide. And just some of the challenges that we've found with virtual wards, starting with the data side of things, is just that there's a lack of benchmarking. There's a number of different models, a number of different focuses across the country as to what a virtual ward looks like, and therefore it's very difficult to define what it should look like. But it's a new and evolving service, so it's to be expected to a degree. We are asked to report our occupancy in a similar way to a hospital bedded ward. So it's a snapshot taken at 8 AM once every fortnight. So it doesn't take that sort of longer term occupancy into account. It's just what's happening at that moment in time. And there have been a lot of changes in reporting requirements. And I think what Surrey Downs have managed to do with their transformation piece is get to a point where they are reporting everything that is needed through one system, something that a lot of us are struggling to keep up with. And there's also been recent changes in guidance around which cohorts count as virtual ward patients, with an awful lot of teams in an awful lot of areas doing work to avoid admission. Particularly, there are patients out there that meet the virtual ward criteria that have to be counted, but they might not be being seen by specific virtual ward teams. We've also had challenges with funding because it's been non-recurrent, so it's been a year at a time, which makes it very difficult to plan long term and therefore to fully integrate with other teams that exist out there. Although that is happening, it's just not as easy as it possibly could be. And there's a lot of variations around local support and local systems, specifically with social care input into virtual wards, which with our frailty cohort is really important. GP awareness and ability to take on patients that might have been in a virtual ward and been discharged, as well as awareness and understanding of what a virtual ward can offer. We're all very aware that the terminology is not very approachable. So when we talk about virtual things, remote monitoring, tech-enabled care, that patients and other professionals don't always understand what we're talking about. So there's some work going into that nationally about how we talk about virtual wards and better ways to get them understood, particularly for patients and carers. I think that's everything from me, and we're going to open up to any questions anybody might have around virtual wards or any of the specifics that we've covered today.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Amanda and Pippa, for joining us from your very, very busy schedule. Any questions? Virtual ward is a really hot topic right now, particularly for us, where we are an acute provider, but also support the community services as well. I think there was. Did someone raise a hand right now? No. Any questions from the floor? No questions. You silenced the group. This is a very good example of the BI team working very closely with the services, particularly because this is a new service and also very strong links with the acute area as well to easing up the bed pressures. So if there's no questions, thank you so much, everyone, for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. I can say it's actually been really fascinating to work with BI with developing the dashboard and, you know, looking at what we can find and designing our template to make that happen. So that's been good. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Great feedback to the team. Well done, Ramya and George. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move us on to our final bit. So trying to share my screen. Right, okay. So the future dates for this year. These events can be found on the AphA website. There's a AphA calendar on the website where you can find the future dates and also the links to the registration to these events. As mentioned before, the 6th of February is the London Skills Development Network conference. I think the registration is still open. This is an in-person conference in central London. I think it's 22nd of February. This Ruth has mentioned earlier. There's a AphA and FEDIP webinar around their new hub for the CPD. And then early March, there will be the Rewired conference. This will be at Birmingham this year. And on the 16th of April in the morning, we will have our next AphA London branch meeting in person. This is going to be my first in-person event. And Moorfields has kindly agreed to provide the venue. So the registration will be open shortly. We will, I believe we can do this as a hybrid. So if you can't join in person, I'm sure you can join remotely. Also, there is a discussion around having regular network drinks planned with London and the South East region. I don't know, Jeanette, if you're still with us. The plan is to kind of meet up in a pub near London Bridge. Yes, you are here, Jeanette. So everyone, Jeanette is, Jeanette is the branch lead for Southeast. And it was her suggestion. Thank you for a great suggestion. This is going to be everyone's welcome, not just London and Southeast. But obviously it will be in London, so there might be some challenges if you're not close by. But if you are in town and if the dates do work, please do join us. Details will be announced later. And also we encourage everyone to get together and have drinks when you're in a conference or an event together. Right. Okay, so that's it. And for the next session is in person, but if there's any presentation that you can do, it's a great opportunity to challenge your presentation skills, practice, and please do contact us. Okay, so that's it from me. Any other questions? Is there any comments that anyone would like to ask? This is the opportunity. If not, thank you everyone so much for your contribution, and we will see you next time. Thank you.